Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you back on the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we've got Game 7. We all knew it was coming, Nate. Game 7 here in this NBA Eastern Conference Finals after the C's win 3 in a row and a very, very nice win there in Game 6. That was incredibly exciting. We did decently on that one, but we're looking here at Game 7, obviously. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page. We're bringing you best bets in this video. Also have one with player props up for you guys as well. So continue to follow along in this one and throughout the NBA Finals as we continue along. Also head to thelines.com. Check out all the great written content we're putting up on the site right now and use that odds finder tool we have up there. A nice chart showing you all the odds available to you from all these US sportsbooks, giving us bets this postseason. As we look into this game here real quick, just running it back, Nate, for how we did in the last game on our best bets. 1-1 by yourself, 1-0, as I also had a futures bet that I mentioned pretty heavily that I will repeat here and just talk about once more on top of another best bet that I've got for you guys. So a nice 3-1. Hopefully 4-0 if those futures maintain as we move forward. But let's jump right into your first best bet for this Game 7, Nate.
Yeah, I mean, emotions are going to play a major factor in this, right? You said we all knew it was coming. The Heat definitely didn't think it was coming in the last couple seconds of Game 6. And they have to feel pretty, dejected, wind out of their sails. There's definitely a possibility that they're the ones who let go of the rope here in the second half and don't have the same kind of defensive effort down the stretch that we've seen the last few games to limit Boston down the stretch. At least in last game, in a very close game. So I'm going with the Celtics to score 106 at home at minus 112 here at FanDuel because, they almost got to that total with their worst three-point shooting performance of the entire season, regular season included, still found a way to win. So obviously there's some positive regression that we're going to see there. In terms of them coming back home. They've shot 37% from three, whether at home or away. Actually taken a lot less threes at home in this postseason, 6 fewer per game, but their offensive rating is better. They're better at attacking. And, you have to ask, are the Celtics just better when they do attack more? And then it opens it up to more quality 3-point looks. And in the last 3 in the series, that's kind of what we've seen happen, right? We've seen Tatum go to the basket. We've seen other guys do drive and draw multiple defenders, multiple driving kicks. 88% of their threes have been assisted, but whereas a high percentage of their twos, 57%, have been unassisted. So that to me indicates like you're being more decisive. You're either going all the way to the basket or you're kicking it out until we get a good look, which is Celtics ball. It's Missoula ball. Interesting. We haven't recorded a show the morning of the game in a while, Josh. And so we actually know the refs tonight. And Tony Brothers and Scott Foster are both on the crew. Scott Foster, this is his 3rd game of the conference finals somehow. I didn't know that you were allowed to ref that many. But the NBA loves to throw him into things. The NBA has to be loving the fact that the Celtics pulled this off after we might have had double sweeps. They're definitely going to want to see the Celtics in the finals. Scott Foster is known for being the extender, the influencer to some degree. And the Heat happen to be 0-10 in games ref by either Foster and or Tony Brothers. This entire season, Celtics are 7-2. So to me, what that might indicate that maybe the Heat are called for more fouls than they usually are because they're one of the lowest foul rate teams out there. Just another tick in the box in terms of Boston maybe getting more at the line and scoring more down the stretch where their offense had kind of faded away in the last game and basically any close game they played in these playoffs. But I don't know if it's going to be close. I mean, the spread is 8. Miami, at this point, they gave them their best shot for sure. And now it's just a situation where when you saw Jimmy with no confidence the entire game, like we said in Game 5, like, oh, he's just picking his spots, he's waiting. He got thoroughly outplayed for all of Game 6, except for the final minute. I guess he came up with some clutch plays. But if your leader is not feeling confident, if he's getting absolutely worked by Tatum, and the Celtics have more depth on top of that, then the Celtics could run away with this, but I think the safest way to bet it is just to say that they'll score a little bit more than they did in Game 6.
I've got no problem with it. I'm not really trying to attack the total in this one at 203.5. Obviously, you got the C's there with the 105.5, and Apparently, there's not much confidence in Miami to score anymore, which makes sense. But I thought they were in obviously a much worse position without Gabe Vincent the last time that they played in Boston like this. That was a huge detriment to them, and that should increase the scoring overall and in general. Even after he had a poor shooting game in Game 6, he still was very heavily involved in the offense. Shot the ball 18 times, and I would expect to make a few more than 6 of them in this game. I would just bring him up briefly because we'll talk about him more, but I think he adds to the likelihood that offense is scored on both sides. I'm just starting to fall more and more in love with this bet that I found, maybe like 20 minutes before we started recording. I was looking at the player performance doubles on FanDuel. Jason Tatum to get a double in the win is minus 104. And I do like him for 10 rebounds in this one. His prop is at a 10.5, 11.5 in some places as well for his rebounds because he keeps getting so many of them. It's about 10.5 usually because he's got about 10 averaged in this series and got 11 every single time he actually got 10 as well. So I think it's a reasonable bet there, but I'm liking his double. I'm liking finding ways to bet on the C's because like even if we just get completely fooled and Miami does some stuff that's like super Miami where they do exactly what you couldn't have seen them doing because they play so well in the areas that they've been playing well this season, that it's going to take perfection for them. They just don't have the error for the margin for error that they have, that the C's have with the increased talent that they have, the obviously much more talent on the C's right now. Like for me, it's just a game where I don't know that Miami can pull that kind of magic out. They're just gonna have to be so perfect, not fouling, getting to the free throw line and making their threes at like a 43% clip. It just doesn't leave much room for error to lose and to beat this C's team. So I like that one as well. Throwing it in there to add to yours, but I guess I'll talk about my first bet first, not necessarily in order of everything I like, but like I said, since I'm not really attacking the total and betting on Boston to win means I have to lay so many points unless I find ways to bet their money line and such or tease, whatever. I'm not really going that route. I'm talking about Marcus Smart here. I'm just trying to depend on things that I know I can depend on. And Marcus Smart to be in the game for 42-ish minutes and shooting the ball at least 10 times from everywhere and probably a solid 8 to 9 3-point attempts means I like his threes. At 3 made is plus 114 on FanDuel. They're really itching for us to take these odds, and I guess I'm just going to take it because I do believe in the amount of volume that we're going to get from Marcus Smart. That's what I'm trying to find in this one. I think what we saw in Game 7, I think you agree, is a lot of what we should see in games. What we saw in Game 6 is what we'll see in Game 7. Because it's a lot of who's playing 42-ish minutes. There were no Kevin Love minutes. Malcolm Brogdon couldn't get on the floor because of being hurt once again. And Rob Will wasn't trusted beyond roughly 15, 16, 17 minutes in that last game because it's Derek White, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford. They're going to be on the floor for like at least 37 minutes, all those players, probably close to 40 or plus. We know Jalen and Jason Tatum will probably play at least 45, 46 each, if not like the whole game. So going back to that, for him to hit 3, if he's going to attempt at least 8 to 9, like I think he will, I'm feeling good about it. So 18 points per game in 36 minutes a night over the last 3. That's because he only played 30 in one of those games, even though he still got the points he needed. He's hit 3+ threes in all 3 of those last 3 games, including when he only had 11 points in Game 5, but still shot 9 threes and made 3 of them. He's averaging 9 threes a game in the last 3 with a 22% usage rate. Obviously good for third best behind the Jalen Jason Tatum duo. So also looking at last year's Game 7, I think we can rely on a lot of that with a few tweaks. But for the most part, like the tweaks would be Grant Williams isn't going to get 30 minutes if Derek White's going to play because Grant Will got 30 minutes in that last Game 7. Derek White did not play. He played 19. He's not going to be playing that. He's going to be playing double that in this game. But like I said, we can depend on that. Marcus Smart shot the ball 10 times from 3. He had 22 field goal attempts in that game. Nate. That was one of the more memorable, sort of aspects of that game was that you could not stop Marcus Smart from shooting. And it was fine. It worked out. They obviously won the game. He had in 41 minutes, he had 21 points and was 3 for 10 from 3. So I'm expecting the same amount of attempts from Mr. Smart. I do think they closed down on Derek White a bit better in that last game. That was something that I talked about, which is why I correctly got his assists in that game and his rebounds and assists that I was both looking at for Derek White in the last game because they couldn't give up 11 uncontested threes to Derek White again in Game 6 like they did in Game 5 when he went off. So he still played super well. He still got his points, rebounds, and assists. He still got a ton of threes, but they closed him down a bunch more and he wasn't open nearly as much, which left Marcus Smart wider open than he normally even is. Not that he needs to be open to shoot. So looking at the usage and all that stuff, I know we'll talk about D. White a little bit. We'll talk about Gabe Vincent, all these guys, but like Marcus Smart's a guy is going to get the third most amount of attempts on the Celtics. So I'm just going to take him to hit 3 of them.
Yeah, I never thought I would hear you say this is something I can rely on, Marcus Smart hitting threes. But yeah, when I look at the attempts, I am on board with that because he's just got to shoot 30% or better. If he's going to chuck 9 or 10, he's definitely way more willing to fire than Derek White, at least we saw in that last game. White looking for that good shot, looking to be the connective glue guy. He's still a newcomer, where Smart's like, this is my team. This has always been my team. I'm the best. I'm the leader of this team. And he's going to try to lead as we get later in the series. And Miami, yeah, I think they in the past, like White, they've been like, we're gonna live with Marcus Smart shooting threes. Now they kind of closed out really aggressively, but Smart's still feeling it enough that he's able to like do the pump fake, blow by, reset, and he hit a couple off that. So yeah, I was surprised that he actually would have hit that three party I went for last game instead of Tatum, who went 0 for 8. Brown also hit none, but Smart still has confidence. So I'm not sure. I said I'm not sure in that first bet if the Celtics are going to sputter down the stretch like they have in so many close games, so many big games over the past couple of years. But I am pretty sure that they're going to score a lot in the first half, that they're going to come out with that crowd exploding and look to put Miami to bed early because, frankly, they have to be aware that they don't win close games too often, that it gets very dicey for them. So their best bet here is to put Miami to bed early. And that's why I'm going with over for the first half total, including Miami's points. 105. It's good odds at FanDuel, nearly even money. The Celtics are scoring 56 points per game in these last 3 wins in the first half, including Tatum, absolutely cooking the last 2 before he fades away down the stretch. And that's the thing that I'm not really sure, is that going to happen again? But, he has 37 on nearly, an 80% shooting inside the arc in the last 2 first halves. Jalen, 26 on better than 50% in the first half. And Miami is coming right back with 51 points per game. So we're averaging 107 in those 3, and Miami shooting 43% from deep. Those 3 games are kind of skewed because, like you mentioned, Gabe Vincent didn't play in one, and they only got 44 in Game 5 in Boston, where Kyle Lowry was just maybe had the worst playoff game of his career in that spot start. In these playoffs, Miami is giving up 60 points per game in the first half on the road, putting themselves in holes that they then try to dig out of with better defense in the second half. But in those first halves, 122 defensive rating, playing a little faster, 98 pace on the road. This is compared to a 105 defensive rating in the first half at home. Boston's offensive numbers are much better in the first half at home. I know they've lost a lot of games at home, but again, I'm just talking about them in the first half. They have 62% true shooting. That's the second best mark in the playoffs. So as long as if we are near the averages in terms of how they do home and road here, we're looking at a total of 112 in the first half or higher. So I think 105 is a fine bet.
Yeah, if you're gonna tag an over, I don't know, maybe don't get sucked into the 203.5 and just go like, that's so low. How do they not get that? I would agree it's a bit better to go for that first half. You do come out a bit looser, especially for the C's, which you already talked about, their team total. I think they will, they're like to get the 55, 56 that they've been averaging in the first half once again, especially if they come out with Tatum, especially. I mean, we saw Jaylen Brown take over the first quarter. Tatum maintained pace and then took over in the second quarter in that last game, and I think you can expect more of the same. Just more of the same, man. Like Game 6 was a great indicator of what you're going to see in Game 7 as well. Obviously, we can't tell you if everyone's going to hit their shots at the rate that we would like them to, but we can tell you how to put ourselves in the best possible position to get something to happen that's likely, and this is likely, in my opinion, at the juice you're getting, close to even money here for them to get 105 total between these two teams in the first half. Like, we really just need Miami to come along. That's really what we're saying, is like, Miami don't get blown out in the first half. You probably don't have the room to go down like you have been in the second quarters, especially. You have to maintain pace because you can't rely on outscoring the C's by double digits in the third quarter like you have been, especially if the C's have found a way to play around needing to hit their threes like they did in the last one. So I'm going to close out the best bets here, Nate, talking about a couple quick things. Let me just bring up briefly firsthand the fact that I talked about the Denver Nuggets as NBA champions in the last video, and I'm bringing that back back as a best bet just because the formula continues to hold true. They're currently minus 130 to win the NBA championship. It's time for another couple of units that I keep piling on them. As I mentioned, I'm playing them like a stock that I believe in, and I'm not really worried about external market influencers. I'm actually enjoying watching the external market influencers impact this line towards my favor as I continue to hit it. So it was minus 280 before Boston won their first game of the series. After they won game 5, it was minus 220 for Denver to win the championship. After they just won game 6, it was before they won game 6, it was minus 180. And now before game 7, it's minus 130. So it keeps going in the direction we knew it would, because the odds makers here are telling us, like, if they play Miami, they're winning that series. And Miami looked like the team that was going to move on no matter what when they were up 3-0. And so that's why the odds were so low, is everyone expected them to play Miami. But not everyone expects them to beat Boston the same way they would probably just thrash the Heat at this point. Even if, Boston comes into this a bit more tired, like I believe that they will, and I still believe in the Nuggets, but that's why this price keeps going down. Probably going to get right down to about even money, really close to it. Maybe the Celtics come in as favorites to open because of this momentum. I don't know. It's going to be right around there. So rather than worry about exactly what it's going to be, it's just like, it's going to keep getting better. And I'll probably hit it once more I'm going to hit it once more once it gets back down to about even money there. Your quick thoughts before I move into this game's bet on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on record saying how I feel about that. The Celtics are not beating the Nuggets, that they will be outmatched from an X's and O's standpoint. And this time the veteran coach has so many more pieces to deploy, including defenders that can actually guard Tatum, guard Brown, and nobody's stopping Jokic. And the Nuggets, they're so favored over the Heat because of the regular season matchup. They've also dominated the Celtics, like, except for some random games where somebody didn't play. Like, Jokic has had his way against these centers and this group, like he does against everybody.
Yeah, 100%. So, all right. Well, let me finish up with the best bet from this game, which is a same game parlay with Marcus Smart. Hopefully, it's a smart same game parlay. Where I wanted to talk about a few rebounding things too. That's why I wanted to throw this in there. Smart to hit 3 threes, which I already talked about. I mean, it's a little bit tricky because of the fact that obviously it's more than 2, and 2 I would feel incredibly safe with. So feel free to take that instead of 3 if you want to feel better about it. But the other 2 bets I wanted to get in here in the same game parlay are Al Horford 7+ boards and Jason Tatum 10+ rebounds. And all those 3 things get you to plus 508 on FanDuel. If you do bump down Smart to 2+ made threes, you're going to get that down to about in the plus 280s, plus 300s, cutting it almost in half, obviously. So it's a big difference for him to hit 1 less 3. Do what you will with it. It's just something to add to these 2 rebound bets that I really liked. Because talking about Papa Al rebounds real quick, that was something I wanted to target. You don't get great odds for him to get 7, and 7 is like what I feel the most comfortable about, even though he could definitely get 8 as well, or more. But in the last 3, 7 boards, 11 boards, 7 boards in each of the last 3 games that they finally won. He had 14 rebounds in last year's game 7 because we only saw Rob Will for 15 minutes in that game 7. And you can probably bank on that a bit more in this game as well, where, he played 18, 17, 20 minutes here in the last 3 games or so. But, if this is a game 7 where you can't really just afford to throw him out there for a few minutes and hope for the best, like, I'm not saying he's playing poorly, but like, they need the offense and the shooting to keep their offense intact the way it has been. And they don't necessarily need that much rebounding for him with the way that they have the height advantage, even without a true center on the floor like Rob Will. So you add that to Papa Al being out there for another like 42-ish minutes like he played in that last year game 7. Like, I know you're old, man, but there's no time for that at this point. It's the end of the season if we don't win. So going to Tatum at 10+ boards, like, that's about where his prop is at, because of the fact that he's gotten 10, he's averaging 10 in the series. He's gotten at least 10 in 4 of the 6 games this series, and he got 10 in last year's game 7. The things I keep coming back to is like, what has been happening as of late and what happened in last year's game 7 that can maybe give us some precedence here. So I think all this is, based on the fact that my first thought was like, wait, I'm not buying an over necessarily in this game. I'm feeling like there's going to be a bunch more misses the way that there were in the last game, despite the fact that this pace has gone all the way down. That's the thing that scares you a little bit, is like the pace was 90 in the last game, right? It was like 87.5 at one point in the game before. So like it's dropping. It's going to stay down there. We're at the end of the season, tired legs, very tight sphincters as everyone gets a little bit more nervous in a game 7. So there's just more misses, even if there's fewer shots going up. That's why in last year's game 7, it was a 51-44 rebounding advantage for Boston, but that was definitely the most rebounds that we saw available available in a game, or that were grabbed anyway. I'm sure there were a few more available that maybe got tipped out of bounds or whatever. There was a foul call, what have you, but there was just so many misses with these teams shooting 41% and 42% from the field overall in last year's game 7. And that's been the case in the last game too. You saw the Celtics miss a ton of threes, which is why Bam did get well over his rebounding prop that I thought I'd get cute with. I'd still prefer an under on Bam's rebounding prop, but it's not something that I want to take an under on when I do believe there's going to be a few more misses in this game than we've been seeing at times. So that's why I like the rebounds in there to get us all the way up to plus 500 for those two guys. And like I said, if you want to be safe about this, I might ladder it and just play smart with the 2 threes instead of the 3, and maybe put a little bit on the 3 depending on how you find the juice. But FanDuel was much better for this, to be able to give us exactly what we wanted, as opposed to DraftKings and some other books that make you take alt rebounds that are exactly what they want you to take. So I like the way that this one's shaped up.
Yeah, I would be safer by actually lowering the rebounds, because if you say like Tatum got 10 in this game, he has 10 and 4 or 6, you need him to get exactly 10 or more. Like the ball, just the rebounds are always for me like a little harder to forecast, because just you don't know where the ball is going to bounce. You don't know who's going to go for it, especially with Horford, who might just be boxing out and not trying to grab any of them. So I would lower those a couple. Leave the threes where they're at if you do feel confident with that first bet Josh threw out there, and or maybe, tack on somebody else's threes like Derek White, 80% of his attempts coming from 3, or Gabe Vincent, who we're about to get to in player props. But I agree with some sort of parlay like that. Let's just be a little more conservative.
We can be. I love the rebounds, because even if like what we're playing here once again is just like putting ourselves in a position to be able to win. We need to know who's going to be on the floor to soak up those boards. I just think there's going to be more of them, which is why I like it. But I'm fine with messing with this. Like I said, I wanted to kind of cheat in a way and get a bunch of picks in at once that I liked, and talk about that without maybe making us go too long. So I got that in. Figure out how you'd like to play with the mix and match these parlays if you'd like, and just take the individual bets too. Absolutely no problem with that what I'm talking about there. So that is all the time we have for you in this one, though. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Check out the play props we have for you guys. Last one of this year's Eastern Conference Finals. And we will see you next for a finals video. So until then, happy betting.